Alright, so we got a leaf and we want to make a texture out of this. It's just a picture. And first thing I'm going to think about is just cutting it out. So I'm going to make this like kind of a quick dirty version. And I'm going to use my pen tool to basically just kind of draw curves here. So I'm going to just click and drag. And then this is going to be a curve. If I click and drag here, you can see it's drawing a nice curve along this. And I'm going to cut inside of the leaf a little bit because it has like these little tiny edges there that it would be nice to have those, but they're probably going to be not seen and hard to pick up and all that other good stuff. So we're just going to basically ignore those and click and drag and click and drag and just keep doing that as we go around this leaf. So I'm using the pen tool. And then I'm going to single click, and single click. That gives you a sharp edge. And then again, click and drag like so. So I'm just going to go ahead and just work myself around here and then finish it off. Now, if I want to adjust these, I can go ahead and use the direct selection tool. So this is the white arrow. There's a black arrow that grabs everything, and then the white arrow grabs just the individual points. So if I go ahead and zoom in on these and I go back to this tool, which is hitting A is the shortcut, I can look and see like, oh, this one's a little bit off, so I can pull that in. I can drag and select and pull that in and kind of move up here, something like that. And then you could always drag these handles too. So these handles can be adjusted so that you can get just the shape that you want. If you found that you like need another point here, you can hold, you could go right over this and just right click and hit add anchor point. And so you can see that'll add a point in between the two. I'm going to undo that. The other thing you could do is you can go ahead and hit, Control and Alt together, and you can make these into sharp points. So I can go ahead and click on this so you can see it looks like a little arrow, and then it makes a sharp point. So that will actually change it. So you can change it by holding Control and Alt, click on it, and then you can change it back by hitting Control and Alt, same thing, and then just starting to drag, left click and drag. Okay, so let's just go ahead and make final adjustments. This looks good. And we might want one here, so right click, anchor point, and just pull that in a little bit, like so. And like here you have this, it's kind of going outside, so we can pull that in a little bit. And there we go. I mean, this will be a fine cutout for this. Okay, so then I might actually, let's do this. Let's make that a little smooth so it looks more organic. Okay, so we've got all these points here. Come to the path, you can see we have a work path. If you want to save this, just double click on it and you can name it. I'm just gonna leave it that default name. And then I can go ahead and hit this little thing here, which will make it a selection. So now I have a selection. And if we come back to our layers, we can see we have the background layer selected, and I could go ahead and just hit Control C. And once I hit Control C, it will copy whatever's on this layer to the clipboard. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new file. So that's just hitting Control N, or you can go up into your file and make that. And I'm going to make this new file. Let's say something like, so this is what's in the clipboard. This is the size. So it's actually big. So we can actually make this like a, well, let's just say a 2048. Actually, we want a 1024 in width, which is a power of 2, and a 2048 in height, and say create. And then I'm going to go ahead and just paste this in. And now it's going to be off. But I can go to my move tool here and just left click and drag, and you can move it around. So you can see it's in there, but it's just coming off the canvas. So I'll hit Control T, and if you hit Control T, you can see you can start adjusting this. Now it's locked at the aspect ratio of 100% and 100%. So if I start dragging this, it'll just start shrinking it the right size, or I should say in the right aspect ratio. And then I can come over to these corners. You can see the arrow will change, so it's kind of looks like it's turned like a curve. And you can go ahead and just adjust this a little bit more. and we can bring this in like this, and now we have a leaf, right? And it's perfectly cut out. So if I wanted to make an alpha for this, I could just hold Control and click on this little leaf icon in the layer, and it will actually select the outside of it. So you can see it just does a selection. I can go to my channels, and then I can go ahead and make a new layer here, and automatically it'll add an alpha, but we want to paste this white foreground color in the area that we want to be opaque, and then the black area will be transparent. So to do that, I could just hit Alt-Delete, which is basically filling with the foreground color, and if it was the background color, it's Control-Delete, but Alt-Delete fills with the foreground color. So now we have this, and what I like to do with the background color here is I'm just going to go ahead and do a little sample of like this green towards the edge, like so, and then I'll go ahead and fill that. So again, Alt-Delete. So I filled that in, and there's one other trick you could do in case, you know, like you don't want the edges to, you don't want them to be white, because sometimes those edges will show through when you put the alpha mask on a 3D object. So I can make a duplicate of the top layer, and I'm gonna just pull it below, and then I'm gonna do a filter other minimum. I think that's the right one. It's either minimum or maximum. Let's see. Yeah, that's the right one, minimum. And so we go like that, and what it does is it basically takes the edges and it sort of stretches that color out a little bit. So now if there is a little bit showing through, it should be pretty close to the color that's right on that edge. But our actual pixels are inside of there, as you can see. So we have that. Okay, so if I save this out as a Targa, we have this channel in here, this alpha channel. We could save it out as a 32-bit Targa. That's one thing we could do. And then the alpha, which is defined by this selection that we have here, that will define where we can see things where we can't. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, Save as Copy, and on my computer. And I'm just going to throw this up onto my desktop for right now. And I'm going to change it from a Photoshop file, which I may want to save it as a Photoshop file eventually, but for right now, I'll just save it as a Targa. This is an old school game texture that or texture format that we used to use that's uncompressed. So I'm going to say leaf example ex, hit enter, and then you're going to get these options that come up. And if you want the alpha mask to be saved in, you make it a 32-bit. So that will be basically baked in. So you say okay, and now that's baked in. So now we know that's how we have to have some kind of alpha mask. If you, you know, another option is you can make it a PNG, and you could hide this and just save this as a PNG with transparency. But like I said, sometimes it's better just to have that background in there, just in case a little bit of the edge is showing or something like that. So, you know, the other option, let me just show you this. You would just go like this and say save as copy, and in this case, you'll make it a PNG, and we'll call it the same thing, leaf ex, leaf underscore ex, and we're on the desktop, so we'll say save. And I would do it at the largest, say okay. And so either one of these could work, okay? So we could use either one. And let's go ahead and jump into Sketchfab. I'll pull Sketchfab over here. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to load that leaf onto a plane, and then I'm going to make sure that in my opacity I set that leaf texture in here as well. Dithered will allow you to have like proper shadows. If I go blending, well, actually that's working too. But this says this type of transparency does not cast shadows. Well, it is casting shadows, so I don't know why they're saying that. Maybe that's maybe that was old or something like that. So let's go ahead and just do an example. All right, so here we are in Maya. Let's go ahead and just make a plane just for an example of how you would put this on there. And with this plane, since my texture size is double the length in this direction than it is in the width direction, what we can do with this plane is we'll go ahead and go into its settings. We'll just change this just for simplicity to 1 by 1, and then we'll make the width 0.5 like that. And so now it has the same aspect ratio. Now what's going to happen though is what Maya does is Maya does not change the UVs, or I should say it, well actually it's doing it right now. Maybe they changed that. What they used to do is they used to actually half the UVs then, but that's not what I want. This is actually what I want. I want it to take up the whole space. So let's go ahead and just right click, hold, and go to assign new material. We'll put a blend on there. We'll go to that blend, we'll add the color in, which is on my desktop. So file, I'll go find the color. And again, you could use the PNG or you could use the Targa. I'm going to use the Targa just because I want to. We'll do it that way. All right, save, yes. Okay, so now we have this on here if I select it, but we're not seeing it because we have to hit 6 on the keyboard, and now we see it in here. Now you'll notice that there's this sheen on here, and that shouldn't show up in Sketchfab, but if you wanted to see it without that sheen in Maya, then you would want to open up your hypergraph, and we'd go into here and select that texture, which I should probably name m_leaf, like so. And I'm going to select this and I'm going to go ahead and graph it, which is this little, looks like 2 little play buttons there, and we'll make this bigger so we can just roll into it. And oops. So I have, basically this is the texture node that's holding the texture. This is where it's placed on the UVs. That's what these things represent. You can see out UVs, and then it goes into UV coordinates, and then it has an out color that goes into the shader's color, and then it has this going into the transparency, which is it's adding that so that you can see it. But what you want to do is you actually, if you want to get rid of that specular color, which you could do, or that specular sheen, oops, is we can open this up and you just need to drag this out alpha into each one of these RGB. And then if I go ahead and minimize this, now you can see you don't see that outer part anymore. So what's happening is that it's taking that black and white alpha, this right here, it's taking this, and so wherever it's black, it's not going to have any specular highlights, and that's what it's driving into there. So this is completely white. It's just a way to see it in Maya. But if I was going to make a spec map for it, which is actually probably the best way to go, but for this I'm just showing an example, but if I was going to make a spec map, I would just make sure on the outside of the spec map it was black like this. Okay, so we've got our plane, and this is ready to get exported. So like, just imagine this is on a whole tree, but we're just showing how you set up a leaf in Sketchfab. So let's go export selection, and we'll do an FBX, and we'll call it leaf underscore EX. Just keep our naming consistent. And let's see here, let's put it on the desktop. Export selection. Okay, now look what just happened here. Oh, Maya, goofy Maya. I don't know why it did that. It was right, and then I didn't even touch it. As you guys saw, I didn't do anything. I'm going to take these UVs, so I'm just right-clicking and dragging to UVs. I'll take these 2 UVs on the side. I will get my move tool out, and I'm going to hold X, which is snap to grid, and I'm just going to snap it right to the outer grid like that. Now it's correct again. I'm not sure why Maya did that. Maybe I should delete my history. You should always do that before you export. And I'll just freeze transformations even though I didn't move it, but we'll export it one more time. Export selection, because weird things can happen. Like that, save it, yes. Okay, so now we should have something where if we go to Sketchfab, here, I'm gonna say exit this one, we'll upload a new one, upload, and we'll browse, desktop, and we should have the leaf open and upload files. Let's make sure that everything works, and I'll just write in testing. Okay, and then we could say view my model. Okay, or we'll go to edit 3D settings. Let's see here, we'll just say save, and then now we'll go to that 3D settings. Now let's see if this is working correctly. Let's see if it brought it in correctly. Okay, so you can see here, it's just a plane. It's like, hey, what's going on? So we're going to go to the materials, and we only have one material. So what we need to do is we'll go to texture, and we'll say import texture, and then it's going to go to right to my desktop. And again, you could use either one of these, they will work. I'll just grab the Targa. Actually, in this case, let's just do the PNG. Let's say open. Okay, so that's what we have, and that's all we need, right? So we're going to go off of here, and you can see it's doing this weird thing. Okay, all right, let's go to the opacity, turn that on, and let's grab that same texture. So manage textures, and we'll grab that, and there you go. So now we have it, and we don't see that issue anymore. So it looks just right. Now, obviously, this is a simplified version, but you know, you could put a specular map in there, you could put some bump in there, you can make it look really nice. But that's all you really have to do. The quick answer was just you got to put this in the opacity. But I just wanted to show you could use either the Targa or the PNG, and just a quick setup. All right, I hope that helps, and have fun modeling. See you soon. All right, so if you watched the first part, I showed how to just do the diffuse color and make this little leaf cutout that I took from a picture that I took way back in the past. I just found it on my hard drive. So let's talk about making a spec for this. Basically, I just have this really quick, easy setup here, and it's going to be super fast. So let me show you what I did here, and I'll go ahead and just toss this out. So we've got this layer here, and I'll keep that black layer. Let's toss that out too. So we're going to go ahead and just duplicate this layer. That's our color layer, and then we'll hit Control G. It'll put it into its own group so that we can just keep organized. I'll call that spec. I'm going to hit Control Shift U, which will it's actually going to desaturate this. So you can see in my history right here, Control Shift U is desaturate. You could also come up to image adjustments, and it's in here somewhere, desaturate. See, Shift Control U, that's what we just did. Okay, so we've got that, and then I'm going to hit Control I, which is going to invert it. And the reason why is because so the spec map, anywhere where it's lighter, it's going to be shiny, and anywhere where it's darker, it's going to be you know, more dull. Now, if you're doing a roughness map, which is really mostly how we do it, we'd actually could just leave it like this. And so the rough, these little cracks will be more rough, and then it'll be shiny here. So actually, why don't we do that? Why don't we do it roughness? Because if you look in Sketchfab, you can actually do either one. But normally you'll see in workflows now that they're using, sometimes they use both, but see it says roughness. You could use either glossiness or roughness. This is going to be more like the spec map, and then this is going to be more like the roughness. So we'll go ahead and change it to this. And let's go ahead and I'll minimize that. So we'll basically leave it like this. We'll leave it sort of like this, but what you could do too is you could put an adjustment layer of like levels. So let's go ahead and just go to levels here. And this is going to be like super shiny because it's so dark. So I might not want it that dark. So I might go ahead and just like pull, you know, a little bit of the darkness out. And, you know, you can play with this too. This mid-range, this will pull white in. You can see it gets more white. This will pull more black in. And then this will like basically lean the curve to which one it's going towards. So we can go ahead and just like, this is probably pretty good. There's a little problematic area right down here where there was a shine on this, but you know, we're just doing basic tutorials, so we're not going to go into that yet. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control G and clip that levels so that it's only affecting this layer. Okay, and then I'm going to make one more layer, and I'll drag that to the bottom below all these. We can actually put it in the folder like that. And then we're going to fill it with black. So you can just click your little swatch here, your black and white swatch, and then hit Alt Delete. It'll fill it with black. And now we have a roughness map. Very simple. They're very fast. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and save as copy. And we'll do this as a PNG. That should be fine. So save on your computer. I'll steal the name of the other one I saved out. I thought I changed it to PNG. So we'll say leaf example, and underscore rough. Call it rough or roughness if you want to be exact. Say okay. Okay, so this is cool. We can also make a bump map from this as well. Since we already have all this set up, really all you have to do is hit Control-I on that, and then this is going to be like a bump map. So I'm going to go ahead and save that out. Save as, copy on my computer, change that to PNG, and then we'll just save this as a bump. Now, normally I use normal maps, but Sketchfab will take a bump map as well. Oops, I put normal. That's just by habit. Bump is black and white. A normal map actually defines like the direction the normals are on the surface. So if we jump back into Sketchfab, go into here, then we can come in and go to the normal bump, turn it on, we'll change it to bump map, go into here, we have to go manage textures, import, and we'll get the bump, open, grab that, and now we should be able to see some kind of like, you can kind of see it's bumping a little bit now. We can turn it up like so, and so it sort of looks lumpy, but watch what happens when we put the roughness on there. That'll really change it. So we'll go ahead and get that, import texture, get that roughness, grab that, and now this is going to require to have the right lighting. So this is where you might come into here. There we go. So you can see as the light passes over, now the area where the leaf is, or I should say where the roughness is white, is more rough, so you're not seeing the color there, you're just seeing the shininess only on the flat leaf part. Now, you know, obviously I just used a flat plane, so this isn't really, you know, exactly shaped like a leaf. If it was actually curved, if the geometry was curved, it would look a lot better. But I just want to show that, you know, one of the other things that I didn't do, which I probably would, you know, for finalizing this, is I'd probably blur this just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go and hit Control-A, which selects the whole canvas, and then I'm going to hit Control-Shift-C, which basically it will copy everything that is seen on the canvas all at once. And then I'll go Control-V and paste it. So now I have this. This is the bump map with it's the exact same copy, but I can go ahead and go in and blur this a little bit. So let's just do a Gaussian blur. So that's gonna be too much. And the reason why I would do something like this is because if you looked at the way it looked in Sketchfab, it was kind of like, it just looked a little bit too, you know, like just too grainy. So now if I save this over the bump map, save as, copy, put this on as a PNG, we'll save it over that. I mean, I always had the original, so I'm not really too worried about saving over. So I can come in here, and if we come back to the materials, and then we'll just go ahead and go back to the bump. Oops, that's what I need to do. Manage textures, and I would delete this first, so you're not like adding textures that you're not using, because there's a memory there's like a memory cap onto how many textures they're gonna let you add in, and then you know you just select that. Now look at how much less like just grainy it looks, a lot more like how a leaf might actually look. So, and you could probably do with that with the roughness too, but I don't actually think it needs it at this point. I think with the roughness it's probably fine, but that you just need the bump to just be blurred slightly. And that's it. That's how you would make those maps, just to make this look a little bit better. So as I was mentioning before, you could go ahead and add some segments in and curve this thing. I just put a bend modifier on here, or bend deformer, and bent it. And then I exported it back to Sketchfab and re-uploaded over that. And this is what we have now, something more like that. Turn off the wireframe, and there we go. So there's a nice little leaf, and a simple way to devise it. You could just go out and take a picture of a leaf. Now I do want to mention from the original leaf here that you could see, I took it with the sun and the backlight, so that's actually why we were getting such a really good, you know, veiny look to it, and that allowed me to get a lot of that bump. So if you are going to go out and take these pictures, you know, maybe take a leaf, hold it up to the sky, and take a picture of it like that so you can get some light coming through to it. All right, that's it. Have a great one.